well, here, let me, you know, since Patsy's.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for April the 11th, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representatives Barrett, Boyd, Campbell, Camper, Cochran, Crawford, Faison, Freeman, Gant, Garrett, Hawk, Hicks, Kiesling, Lamberth, Love, Lynn, McKenzie, Miller, Moon, Parkinson, Shaw, Sparks, Whitson, Williams, Zachary, Vice Chairman Baum, Chair Lady Hazelwood.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any personal orders or announcements? Chairman Kiesling.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. I would do. Today we do have. We have our election administrators from Loudoun, Fentress. I want them all to stand. Loudoun, Fentress, Roane, and Morgan counties. Let's give them a big welcome. Thank you, Chair Lady.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And remember, somebody left a copy of Teen Magazine on my desk. So if you left your copy of Teen Magazine on my desk, please come and pick it up. Thank you.
Representative Freeman.
Thank you. And I would also like to wish my friend Sam Whitson happy birthday today.
Well, Chairman Whitson, you share a birthday with my grandson, Andrew Levan, and I would like to wish him a happy birthday today on this joint event. And since we will not be here on the 21st, which is Friday of next week, I believe, that's his mother's birthday, my stepdaughter, Linda. So happy birthday to both of them and to Chairman Whitson. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Just wanted to make welcome my District Attorney General is here from Putnam County. General Dunaway is here today. Just want to welcome him. His daughters, twin daughters, and my son graduated school together, and so it's good to see him outside the district. So thank you.
Chairman Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do see my district attorney, or one of my district attorneys sitting there, Mr. Dan Armstrong. Would you please stand? Of course, he has his staff with him as well. Thank you all for being here. And I think Jared Effler was out in the hall, and so he's over in Claiborne, Union County. So I want to thank him for being here as well.
Are there any additional personal orders or announcements? Seeing none, we do have 18 bills on our calendar today, so we'll get right to business. Item number 1 on our calendar is House Bill 1176 by Representative Garrett. We have a motion and a second. Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have an amendment that I'd like to place on this legislation. Amendment code is 7003.
We have a motion and a second on amendment drafting code 007003. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. If you'd like to be recorded as a no, then please see the clerk. Representative Garrett, we are back on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just for an explanation of what 1186 does as amended. The amendment adds language regarding public utilities to make sure if anything on the airport property that there needs to be work on any utilities that will be pursuant to an agreed upon license agreement with the specific utility. Then also it adds language from our comptroller, since our comptroller has reviewed this legislation regarding financial statements, et cetera. So that's what the amendment does. And then the entire bill, including the amendment, as amended, reconstitutes a metropolitan airport authority with 500,000 population, where the appointing members of the airport authority will be from the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the Senate, the governor, and then the mayor of the metropolitan county upon which the airport is located. And I do understand that we have some testimony today, but otherwise, Madam Chairman, that is the basics of what this legislation does.
Thank you. You've heard the sponsor's explanation. As he said, we do have someone who's asked to testify. So without objection, we'll go out of session. We'll ask Mr. Bill Bradley to come forward. Mr. Bradley, welcome. You have 3 minutes for your testimony, and then we'll see if we have folks who have questions for you while we're out of session. But Mr. Bradley, you're recognized.
Chair Lady, I have not had the advantage of seeing the amendment that was just adopted. Could the committee please tell me what the composition of the board will be and what the controller's language will say before I begin testimony? Or provide me a copy of the
We will
amendment.
not start the time until these basic questions have been answered. I believe that the amendment did not do anything. Okay. Mr. Sponsor?
Sure, Madam Chair. The amendment doesn't do anything as the original bill as it relates to the appointments to the authority board.
Was a follow-up question about the comptroller's language.
I'll be happy to read it to you. The authority shall maintain its books and prepare its financial statements in a timely manner satisfactory to the state and pay the state for all costs the state incurs in reviewing the auditing authority's finances. And subsection J, the authority is subject to all provisions of this chapter to the extent otherwise applicable, except as provided by this section. That's from the comptroller.
Mr. Bradley, if you turn your mic on, and does that sufficiently answer your question that are you prepared to testify?
Yes, ma'am, that's just fine.
Thank you.
Chair Lady, and members of the committee, Mr. Garrett in particular, I appreciate your hearing me today. I believe that, as you know, that having a board that is a majority appointed by state officials will result in accountants deciding that this entity becomes a state entity rather than a metro government entity, and that the state becomes financially responsible. I don't think you understood that necessarily when this bill was introduced, but I believe you must understand it now, given the controller's language. I want to say that I believe that the legal memorandum that the airport board received in February, arguing that this is not a change, that this is not a transfer of the entity from one government to another, and that it's not a change in how airports are managed, is incorrect. I'm not sure that the point I've raised was understood at that time. At the time the lawyers wrote that letter, I believe the recent letter from the FAA admonishing the state about this legislation confirms that the FAA believes it is a change in governance, and that the FAA will be involved in approving what's done, and that you will have to deal with the FAA in addition to hearing the decision of accountants and closing the books. I believe that the president of the airport authority, in response to the FAA letter, is not correct. I believe that where he argues that that it is not a change in governance, not a change in ownership. I think ownership is an open question. Governance is not an open question. It is a change in governance. The airport authority is moved to the state government as a component unit, and the state will be financially accountable. The state will appropriate funds. You're prepared to do that, but I would caution you and the airport authority itself that that a body which can appropriate funds can put restrictions on appropriations, and you have a history of doing that. You may recall the University of Tennessee controversy in Knoxville, where some student-led event that had gone on for years became unsatisfactory to you. And I can understand your concern about it, but you punished the University of Tennessee by putting a restriction on the appropriation that was so severe that the appropriation disappeared for the Office of Diversity. So I'm just saying, you could do, if you're dissatisfied with the artwork at the airport, you're dissatisfied with being in the holding pattern, you're dissatisfied for any reason, you can definitely put restrictions on the appropriation.
Mr. Bradley, you have
Yes,
10 seconds.
Okay, and I think you are confusing the law. The law will say this is a municipal entity, but in fact, it will be on the state's books as a component unit. It is making a big mess of the law, and I think you should not do it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have questions for Mr. Bradley? Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Bradley, I think it was difficult to get into the financial responsibility and accountability piece appropriately in that 3 minutes. And I think that to me is what is the most important, that we're going to have the airport authority, which sits within the city of Nashville, will be appointed by members from outside control. And can you talk a little bit about that financial accountability?
Yeah, well, here in information I sent to the committee at the time of the subcommittee, finance subcommittee meeting, I went into some detail about why that's going to happen. Under generally accepted accounting principles with which the state must by law comply, as interpreted by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which has issued some 100 or so statements about how financial statements by governments are to be done. Under those principles of accounting, and let me interject, there are no financial entanglements. The state, metro government is not pledging its general revenues against bonds. They're not backing up the bonds. There's no financial entanglements that I can see in reviewing the accounting reports of both Metro and B&A. So the only standard that will become an issue in making the decision on the part of the chief of accounts will be who controls the board, who appoints the majority of the board. Well, in this case, of course, it would be the state officials appointing 9 with a non-voting mayor. Then the next thing is, do the appointing officials have the ability to exert their will on the board? And one of the factors involved there is, is there any financial reliance? Well, there's not reliance financially by either Metro or the airport authority that I can see. But the other standard is, do the appointing officials have authority to remove the members of the board? And and they do under this legislation, and if they do, then that means that that the airport authority is going to become a component unit of state government, and that state government is financially accountable. Now, I'm not saying that the 1.4 billion of revenue bonds that the airport authority will bring over to the state books is going to disadvantage the state in any way. It will be discreetly reported. It will not be commingled with the general government books, but it will be reported on the state books along with assets, other liabilities, any shorter term debt. So that's what you wind up with. And although I don't see this happening in the short term from what I've reviewed, if there ever is a problem about making debt service or any other kind of extraordinary problem at the airport authority, whose problem is it? Well, it's no longer Metro's. It will be state governments because they're a component unit. But it does kind of make a mess of the law, as I said, because the general law says this is an agency and instrumentality of the metropolitan government of Nashville and Davidson County. But on the other hand, they're no longer on Metro books. There will be no longer responsible to Metro officials. So I think, ownership, who owns it? I can't tell you.
President Freeman, follow up, and then we have some other questioners on the list.
I'll be very quick. Yeah. And I think that gets kind of the heart of where my concern is, and maybe this is a question better posed to the sponsor, but it's not clear who's on the hook if something defaults. And what gives me great pause as a resident of Davidson County is that we're going to have a board appointed by members outside of Davidson County that are making financial decisions that the city of Nashville could theoretically be on the hook for, because again, it's not clear. And if you listen to the sponsor's defense, the ownership and responsibility does not change. And so I keep getting this back and forth of either he's right and it's still a concern, or you're right and it's still a concern. And either way, the whole legislation gives me great pause. But thank you for being here today and
Well,
speaking
thank-
on behalf of the city of Nashville.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And I would point out, if it turns out I'm wrong about what I'm saying to you, I don't believe I am, but if I am, then you've got an agency of metropolitan government for which metropolitan government has no ability to administer. It would be on
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that dialogue. That definitely helps me understand what we're about to encumber. My question is, I guess it's more on liability. So if there's let's say that they created a new runway and it had substandard concrete or asphalt material and created a unknown void in something, we have a unfortunate event with a plane tipping over, folks are hurt, aircrafts are damaged. Is that something that now, in your opinion, would be a state liability?
Well, I've got to assume that the airport authority could take care of the problem with its financial situation without affecting the state general fund, but there will be a component unit of state government, and state government is financially accountable for them. So if there's a problem that the airport authority can't take care of, I've got to think it's a state government problem. But I will say again, there will be, when you pass this bill, there will be confusion in law. It's an instrumentality, an agency of metropolitan government in law, but in fact, it's a component unit of state government for which you are financially accountable. And thank you, sir.
Representative Love, was your question answered? All right. Are there other questions for Mr. Bradley? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Bradley, for being here.
Chair Lady, thank you very much for your consideration. And members of the committee.
All right, we are back on the bill as amended. Representative Garrett, as a sponsor, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me address a couple of things that was testified to by Mr. Bradley, and I appreciate his testimony. When he came to my office, though, his main concern, and really only concern at that time, was that there may be a local control issue, and I tried to assure him that there is not, simply because the members that would be part of this airport authority are from Davidson County, even though they are picked from Tennessee, since this isn't an airport that is owned by Metro, that's owned by Sumner County, that's owned by Wilson County, or owned by Williamson County. This is Tennessee's airport. It is an actual asset that last week you saw the budget presentation where there's over $180 million of the General Assembly's of the general fund that's invested for our 5 major airports and our general aviation airports. In this particular airport in Nashville, over the past decade, the General Assembly has appropriated over $140 million to that airport, where Metro has appropriated $0. And so this is a unique, a very awesome asset that we have here. It's the 27th largest airport in the country. 70% of its travel comes outside Davidson County, comes from 4 or 5 different states. So this airport may have started in the 60s as a local airport for this particular area, but it has certainly grown beyond, I think, even our imagine. And it's due to the efforts of the staff there that has grown this airport. They're thinking about even building an additional runway to accommodate even further flights from here. So we want to make sure that partnership is a strong one with Tennessee's airport. And to address the FAA issues, I am proud to say that my office has reached out in conjunction with Senator Haggerty's office and has discussed this particular legislation extensively with the FAA. And I'm proud to say they have no issues with this due to the fact that other litigation that has been brought in different cities regarding the authority, the airport authority, has been centered around either the state wanted to create a new entity and replace the entity that exists, or change that entity in such a way that the entity is no longer like it was prior to the legislation. It's very important to note that that's all this legislation does, is appoint new members. It does not transfer any ownership. It's still going to be governed by its same bylaws. This legislation says nothing about not or removing members. That would be subject to their own board for whomever is on that if a member should be removed. This legislation doesn't provide for any rights of the General Assembly to remove anyone that they appoint. That would be covered under their bylaws here that I've been provided, as it would relate to any sort of authority that would have the ability to expel a member if that's something that they choose to do in that particular situation under their particular bylaws. And to address the component unit of the state situation, that issue has been resolved. The comptroller of the Treasury has been equally involved in determining whether or not we can make an appropriation that would equal the airport authority's revenues to accomplish that particular issue. And that is no longer going to be, that's addressed in this particular amendment that I put on today, and it'll be addressed in an appropriation later on, is my understanding. So as it relates to what this legislation does pursuant to their own, the Metro Airport Authority's own general counsel to outside counsel that has reviewed the legislation that the witness referred to, that hasn't changed except for the amendment that actually was done at his, when he addressed the issues with the component unit of the state. Their own outside counsel says that it's not affected by an FFA trigger for approval. So this has become an authority that is being funded by every Tennessean across this state. And so it is only incumbent upon, I believe, for the constituents that I represent in Sumner County that is close to the airport, that they have a voice as it relates to how it's governed, how it's managed, to make sure that we have a strong relationship with the airport. I mean, the airport here is the largest commercial service airport in the state of Tennessee. It's the 27th largest airport in the United States. With this strong connection with the airport, we can help and assist them to make better decisions relative to the investments for the future of this airport, for capital investments in the airport for a long time. I hope by this legislation, we will form that strong relationship, strong connection with our airport to keep the trajectory of where Tennessee is going with that relationship. So with that, Madam Chairman, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Do you have a list beginning with Representative Freeman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members of the committee, I want you to applaud the sponsors' verbal gymnastics to get around what is clearly a change in control. If I were to change the people that voted for the sponsor and I were to appoint them, that is changing who is going to sit in that seat. And so the idea that simply changing who appoints doesn't change control, I think we all know is not intellectually honest. And I also want to point out that the city of Nashville has been appointing members of this board, and have seen the growth that this airport has seen. Every airport, by definition, is a regional airport. You don't get on the airplane and taxi around the runway and then get off the airplane. You get on the airplane to fly somewhere. It's a regional asset. Every single airport is a regional asset. And this idea that somehow BNA, because of its size and success that we created, is not subject to its own local control is quite frankly laughable. And then finally, this idea that we have addressed the issues of the FAA, if that is the case, I would ask the sponsor, let's delay and let's see what the letter is, because I'm in possession of a letter from the FAA asking for us to delay, asking for the state to communicate and negotiate the terms of this takeover with the FAA. And I'm also in possession of a board that the Board of Commissioners passed from the Metro Nashville Airport Authority, asking again for us to delay, and let's have a conversation with the FAA to make sure that we don't lose our status and our federal funding here. And we've already seen this bill has gone all the way to this point. If it's something that is needed, we can pass it again next year. I just ask, let's delay, and I want to see this FAA letter. I think we should all see it. If it's not an issue, then present us all with a letter and let's move on.
Representative Garrett, you have a response?
Thank you. And I've received a copy of that letter. That letter is a week, 10 days ago. And since then, the airport authority has reached out to the FAA, has had that discussion that the letter addressed. And also, obviously, me in conjunction with Senator Haggerty's office has also reached out to the FAA, and they have said and confirmed that the information that's provided with the legislation and the language in the legislation does not trigger any issues with the FAA. So, I'm relying upon sound advice and also relying upon the own advice of the Metro Airport Authority's legal counsel, along with their outside counsel, about the issues with the FAA. And I do believe that they have been fully vetted, and I see no issues with the legislation as currently drafted.
Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, members, I'm in possession of a letter dated the 7th that is asking Representative Garrett to please delay and allow them to communicate with the FAA and address the concerns that the FAA has. And so if this is something that has been handled, that's a very simple thing to address. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us here to understand that the 27th largest airport in the United States is being handled fairly, and the legislation is being treated fairly. And what's a day? Would you roll it a week?
Representative Garrett.
I think since the FAA has said the only thing that they would like to see, which is my understanding that they have already done, is making sure that there's a transition training for the new folks that want to be appointed. So even though the discussions in the letter were generic, that they want to be involved, they are involved. They have been contacted. There's communication, and it's my understanding from the FAA that there are no issues here. So I believe the terms of the letter have been appropriately addressed by the Metro Airport Authority, and they don't have any issues. They just want to be kept abreast and make sure those that come in that are appointed have that transition training that the Metropolitan Airport Authority, my understanding, is already underway. And so I believe that this legislation is still in the posture and ready to be passed, and I would ask for your support for same. So thank you very much.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me, if I can, read from a letter that I have from the FAA. The FAA has not yet been contacted by any state representative regarding the proposed legislation. Scrolling down, this is from March 31st. Scrolling down, it says, any state or local legislative body or public agency considering whether to take an action such as drafting legislation that would impact airport ownership, sponsorship, governance, or operations should, one, consult with and obtain the consent of the current sponsor operator absent extraordinary circumstances. So my concern is that
The only appointment that the mayor of Nashville would have, oddly enough, would not be able to vote. According to the amendment, every other person appointed will have the right to vote, except for the one appointed by the Nashville mayor. There's something fundamentally wrong with changing the governance of an airport authority and removing the ability of the mayor of the city in which it is located, even though it may be funded by all the taxpayers of the state, to then have that be the only appointment that has no vote. I don't understand how we got to the place where we say every other person appointed to the airport authority would have a right to weigh in on the operations of the airport, except for the one that comes from the mayor's office. And so I'd ask the sponsor, why is it that we have it such in your amendment that the mayor's appointment is the only one that cannot vote?
Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you for letting me explain that particular position, and it's because of this. The airport is located in Davidson County, so there was some suggestion that there be more people outside of Davidson County that could serve on this particular board because the impact of the airport obviously goes beyond. I think one thing that we can all agree on is that the airport's impact goes beyond one county. So then it becomes, well, do we appoint the mayors of Sumner, Wilson, Williamson, Rutherford that's contiguous with Davidson County? And then it got to the point, well, let's make sure those 8 people or 9 people, the way it's set up now, are at least from Davidson County. And just the reason why it's located in Davidson County, I believe, doesn't give enough to say that those 8 people will be appointed and represent the entire state. And in addition, just by virtue of the airport being located in Davidson County, you got to remember there's no funding coming from the county. Metro gets those other benefits such as the sales tax collection. Everything that's bought there comes back to that locality. None of the other counties that the airport impacts gets any sort of tax revenue from since it's located in Davidson County. And so those are the reasons why that was discussed, and that's the reason why I landed on where we were with the current legislation in its current posture.
Representative Love.
So I'll ask the question again. Absent of all that you just said, why is it that the mayor's appointment is the only one that does not have the right to vote? That's the question.
Representative Garrett.
And I believe I just answered that, Representative Love.
Representative Love.
Sir, I strongly disagree. You gave me an answer about why other folks are added to, but I'm asking you, out of all the proposed changes to it, it says the mayor of the county have the metropolitan form of government or the mayor's designee who serves as an ex officio non-voting commissioner. I just want to, if you can answer it, just say, if you say, well, like we decided not to, okay, but just why is that the mayor's appointment has no voting authority, absent of it being in Davidson County, but why pick out that the mayor's appointment? Why not one of the appointments from the speaker? The speaker has 3, of the House has 3, the speaker of the Senate has 3, the governor has 3. You could have chosen that one of the governor's appointments is a non-voting commission, but instead it's singled out that, and I'm usually the calm one on these committees, but I'm concerned because you're saying the mayor of Nashville's appointment does not have a vote. So there's a voice being silenced because that one commissioner's voice is not being heard. So why is that one voice not being heard?
Representative Garrett.
Again, with even the FAA and its determination of the impact is a 14 county impact by virtue of how they distribute the impact of the airport. So are we going to make 14 different mayors of that county impact have a vote or a non-voting vote aboard this particular commission? And I think you can't expand it or you have 20 or 30 folks on this board that may not operate in an efficient way. And so due to the fact that it's just located in Davidson County, Representative Love, my thought process was of all the benefits that Davidson County already gets, the mayor or the mayor's designee gets to be in the room. That person gets to voice whatever concerns they have. They're the only county out of the 14 counties that gets a voice on that board. So I don't think it's silencing any voice because they're there, they're present, whomever that may be, whether it be the mayor or whether it be the mayor's designee, they're in the room as those decisions are being made and can certainly provide what feedback, what issues, what things they need to do since the airport is located in that county. But no other mayors from the 13 other counties that are impacted under the FFA rules are in that room as well. So that's the simple reason. There's no other reason to silence anyone. That person, either the designee, will be in the room to assist and voice any issues they may have to that board that's in the room.
Representative Love.
This is my last question, Chair. Thank you. And thank you, Representative Garrett, for that. I was made aware when I toured the airport that currently the airport has its highest number of minority participation in its vendors. My concern is in the future. If the issues dealing with increasing vendors, that the mayor's appointment does not have a vote in that meeting. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me ask these questions.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lady, I almost lost my whole train of thought listening to the questioning from my colleague from Davidson County. Is there, and this is my first time hearing this argument, so if you will, please bear with me. But is there something that went wrong with the way that the airport was being managed or handled that caused this legislation to be brought forth?
Representative Garrett.
No.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was surprised to hear that answer. I just assumed that something had went egregiously wrong for such a heavy-handed approach. But if the airport is being managed properly and is operating properly and is providing the growth to the region and the growth to the city that has been giving, why are we tinkering with it?
Representative Garrett.
Because, as I've said before, every Tennessean in our general budget provides appropriations to that airport. And I believe every Tennessean should be represented since it's truly Tennessee's airport. That's the simplest answer I can make as to reasons why that it has nothing to do with the current staff. It has nothing to do with the current appointments. It's just the state sees this as a critical investment for the future of Tennessee. And we want to build a stronger connection, a stronger relationship to ensure its ability to continue that long-term strategic partnership in the future.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. The state is invested in BNA, but the state is also invested in MEM. The state is invested in Knoxville. The state is invested in Chattanooga and every other regional airport that exists in our state. Is this a precursor to the state also doing the same thing to MEM, to Knoxville Airport, Chattanooga, Tri-Cities? Is this the path that we're going down? Why is BNA being singled out amongst all of the airports across the entire state?
Representative Garrett.
I can't answer what could come down or what might happen in the future. I mean, this legislation only relates to this particular airport with this particular situation. So there's no way that I could predict or try to create a hypothetical about what might happen to the other airports. But I probably would say is that they would want a great sustaining relationship with the state. So to make sure that they have a strategic long-term plan would be my guess.
Representative Parkinson, if this could be your last question, I have a number of questioners on the list.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Mr. Sponsor, you mentioned that you would think that they would want a sustained relationship, a great sustained relationship, and I'm paraphrasing, with the state. Has there been a strained relationship between BNA and the state of Tennessee?
Representative Garrett.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have two what I think are fairly quick questions. The first one is, who asked you to bring this legislation before us?
Representative Garrett.
I actually contemplated this legislation a couple of years ago, and then COVID hit, and it just kind of got put to the side. So I had looked at, I think last year, I was the first time that I was on budget, and I saw appropriations to the airport, and that's kind of how I got interested in it and was curious on how it works. So this was not brought to me by any sort of group or suggested to me by any other entity, but looking at the facts, looking at how we fund it, looking at how this has become a Tennessee asset, this was something that I decided my name's on the legislation, so I decided to bring it.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. My final question is, in listening to the first representative from Davidson County, he discussed a letter dated April the 7th, and you responded to that was actually a real letter that was sent by the FAA, and I'm a longtime government contractor employee. Are you saying that you now possess a letter on August the 11th? I mean, April. I keep saying August. I'm sorry. He got this letter on April the 7th, and you're saying that you possess an answer or a series of answers in letter, email form that the FAA has provided you and Senator Hagerty's office? And if not, what evidence were asked to vote on something of billion-dollar significance? What evidence do we have? The representative from Davidson has a letter. I guess it was addressed to you, so you have that letter as well. What other evidence do we have, letter, email, something that says these questions were answered?
Representative Garrett.
We have not only my conversation through Senator Hagerty's office with the FFA saying that the legislation is all good. We have a letter from their outside counsel reaffirming that. Excuse me, I don't think we have a letter from their outside counsel. We have a letter, yes, from their outside counsel reaffirming that this does not trigger any issues with the FAA. So, and then there's letters back and forth from the president and CEO of the Metro Airport regarding the letter and what are the issues. And it's my understanding that the president and CEO of the Metropolitan Airport Authority had a very good conversation with the FAA regarding this particular legislation, and also in conjunction with Senator Hagerty's office to make sure that we are doing what the FAA wanted to do, and that is simply to make sure we stay in communication with the FAA, which we are doing, and also there is a transition plan. That is the feedback that we have received from the FAA.
Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairman Garrett, we heard some comments a few moments ago. Subsection 4, the mayor of the county having the metropolitan form of government or the mayor's designee will serve as ex officio. Right above that, it says 3 persons selected by the Speaker of the House, 3 persons by the Speaker of the Senate, 3 persons appointed by the government. What is the residence requirement of those 9 members that I just mentioned there?
The 9 residents that are, or excuse me, the 9 folks that have to be appointed must be from Davidson County. That is the requirements. And then they go into various different other requirements about their expertise, the fields of their expertise, et cetera.
Okay, so just to thank you, Madam Chair. Just to reiterate, the voting members are residents of Davidson County. Even though we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars as a state, and the reason that we're doing this legislation is because of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Shaw.
Just one question to Mr. Clean. Is that the revenue tax base? Where does that go from the airport?
Representative Garrett.
Are you talking about from the sales tax?
Yes, sir.
That goes to, the state would take their portion, and then the local portion would go back to the Davidson County Metro government for their local share of the sales tax.
Just the state and Davidson County, none of the other outside counties that are participating, are these board members, but would they share in that revenue?
Representative Garrett.
Well, currently, no. The sales tax that generates in Davidson County, the state portion of that sales tax would go back to the general fund, and then their local share, or the local above the state sales tax, would go back to the metropolitan Davidson County.
But
It wouldn't be
Representative
shared
Shaw-
among any other counties.
Representative Shaw, I believe, though, that you perhaps have a misunderstanding. It's my understanding that all of the members of this board will be from Davidson County. There are no other members from outside the county.
That's right.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Representative Miller, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. At one point, I was trying to decide if I want to get into this discussion at all. But at this point, it seems as if what we're really doing, based on the current board, with this amendment, it's literally a takeover of state government. Would you agree with that, Representative Garrett?
I do not.
Okay. Well, would
Representative Miller.
yes, would you consider maybe a compromise? Because it seems as if what you're saying, and clarify, you said that metropolitan government at this point is not putting any revenue in the operations, but the only revenue comes from state government. Could you elaborate on that again?
Representative Garrett.
Oh, well, and a good question. I didn't mean to convey that we're their only funding source. So no, we are a small portion of their funding source. They do have grants, et cetera, from the federal government, and also they're a self-sustaining airport authority that charges fees to the airlines. They charge parking fees, so they have their own revenues that make up the bulk of their revenue. So I didn't mean to imply whatsoever that we were an only source of funding. If I did say that, that was a misstatement on my part.
Thank you for that clarification. A small portion. But right now, your amendment is saying the makeup of the board, based on state government, we will be a large portion of the makeup of the board, a large portion, 90%, 95% of the board at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, because 100%.
Representative Garrett and Representative Miller, we are not going to get into a running debate. I would ask that you wait to be recognized, and Representative Garrett,
Thank you, Madam
please
Chair.
respond.
Yeah, I would say yes, and the reason is because 100% of the Tennesseans fund that portion to the airport.
Representative Miller.
Again, for clarification, if we're looking for 3 persons appointed by the Speaker, by the Senate, and 3 appointed by the governor, will any of those 9 members come from outside metropolitan Davidson County?
Representative Garrett.
No, under the legislation, they have to be from Davidson County.
Representative Miller.
You just said it is a Tennessee airport. Tennessee taxpayers are putting this small portion. So would you consider dividing the 9 members? For an example, give Metro, the mayor, back 2 or 3, or at least half of these appointments?
Representative Garrett.
That's the exact reason why this has that the folks that are appointed under the commission have to be from Davidson County. That's the exact reason why that provision is in there. Otherwise, they could be from counties that are contiguous to Davidson County and it not be considered local since the airport is in Davidson County. That's my reasoning for keeping the appointments exclusive to Davidson County because the airport is located in Davidson County.
Representative Miller, if you could wrap it up, please.
I'm wrapping it up. Conversation started with one of our members using the phrase, verbal gymnastic and intellectual dishonesty. And I thought, wow, those are pretty cool terms, but exactly what does it mean? And that sounds exactly what we are now. Verbal gymnastic and intellectual dishonesty as it relates to this amendment. I would ask you to consider amending this to give back some influence and some power to what the current legislation is, what the current law is.
Representative Garrett.
I don't have any response to that.
Representative Freeman.
Thank you. And just following up that question, the Senate version allows for appointments to come from contiguous counties and is different. Do we have your assurance that the final version that the House will support is just Davidson County?
Representative Garrett.
You've got my assurance that that's my position on it. I can't tell you if this would move out of here and hits the floor and gets passed, what's going to happen from there. But it's very important to me because the airport is located in Davidson County, that the members that are appointed are from Davidson County. That's my best way to assure that that's what I'm going to fight for.
I believe you.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. Lots of discussion on the bill, which I think is great. Leader Garrett, I think for me, one of the things that's really important about this bill is that for many years now, we have spent non-recurring revenue in this space, not just here, but in all of our major airports and general aviation airports across the state. There's a bill before this body which would cap the jet fuel tax to make further incentivize other industries from growing, expanding their businesses here. I've had great opportunity to go to many of these board meetings, of which my good colleague from Nashville's father I met there. And it was a great opportunity to really see what's going on at Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority. They're doing a great job there. The big challenge here is that we're getting ready to spend a lot of non-recurring money or recurring money. Quite frankly, I think it's too much. But what it's going to do is going to stimulate that airport and help it to continue to grow. When I was there at one of the previous board meetings this year, Butch Spearden, who is the CEO of the Nashville Chamber Convention Center, stated that over 7,000 rooms in the Nashville area and another 3,000 outside the Nashville area were beneficiaries of what's going on here, and that it was served by more than 18 counties, this airport was. And so what he said as the representative for the Nashville Tourism Bureau was that, and he's done a phenomenal job, is saying that this airport over the last several decades has far outgrown the city in and of itself. So much so that there hasn't been as much investment from the local government there as much as we have been putting into it. So I think this bill is a good first step. I think my colleagues on the front row making a suggestion or an idea as it relates to expansion to the other big four airports, I think is a valid one, particularly since we're have a fiduciary duty to make sure that they operate there. Under this bill, it can't be expanded to that, I think, because the caption won't hold it because of the way this Metropolitan Airport Authority is done. But I look forward to working with these colleagues in front of me about giving the resources to their communities. They're in a $2.7 billion expansion that many of us got to go there and see. And so it's a great opportunity for us to keep telling the story that's going on in Tennessee. I think this makes the board better. And I look forward to seeing this bill passed. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, Representative Parkinson,
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. To the sponsor, does this idea shrink the size of government?
Representative Garrett,
And as it relates to what?
Shrink
Representative Parkinson.
as relates to making government smaller.
I'm not really
Representative
sure
Garrett.
unless you're talking about the members, because the members are increasing and that somehow makes government larger. I think this makes it more efficient and makes it more of a partnership with the state, that we can ensure that the airport has a strategic long term, and we want to be in that partnership with this airport. So
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you,
final
Madam
question.
Chair Lady. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Mr. Sponsor, you forgot one word, expansive. Because right now, the mayor makes the appointments. That's one person in government. Now with this bill, 3 more people in a different level of government are going to be making 3 more appointments. We go from here to expansive. And I think it's important that you include that description in your description as you are talking about your legislation. My question was, does this bill shrink the size of government?
Representative
And
Garrett. Representative Garrett.
I think this legislation lets all Tennesseans have a say in how their money is spent, since we spend on behalf of all Tennesseans, and that's one of our major roles down here, is to spend their money in a conservative way. And I believe that having the appointments by the General Assembly, their elected representatives, does not expand government.
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move previous question.
Previous question has been called. Are there objections? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 1176. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. For those of you voting in the negative, if you'd like to be recorded as such, please see the clerk. House Bill 1176 moves on to calendar and rules. Next on our calendar is House Bill 1373 by Chairman Carr. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Carr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. This legislation here was brought to the business owners in my district. The owners want they're trying to hire eligible workers to serve those restaurants, and we're facing an issue with the SAFE program. And this way, we've worked this out with ABC that the SAFE program is what restaurant owners use to verify if anyone is eligible to work. So therefore, the workers coming back from the SAFE program with the ABC will be able to get the permit that they need to be able to serve the tables. And with that, I stand for questions.
Are there questions of the sponsor? Question has been called. Without objection, we're voting on House Bill 1373. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Chairman Carr, your bill moves to calendar and rules.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Chairman.
Item number 3 is House Bill 523 by Chairman Haston. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Haston, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. TDEC has historically granted aquatic resource alteration permits for the purposes of dredging sand and gravel from riverbeds that the state owns. This bill simply extends that permit process, allowing that to continue, but now the permittee would be required to pay the state 2.5% of the market value of the materials dredged. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You've heard the sponsor's explanation. Do you have any questions regarding the bill? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 523. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 523 goes to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Committee.
Next on our agenda is House Bill 1484 by Chairman Halsey. We We have a motion and a second. Chairman Hulsey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee. Under existing state law, the state cannot appropriate any money to county jails to deal with medical issues or pharmaceutical issues. Right now, it costs about $3,500 a month for medication to treat HIV positive people that are in jail. This bill just opens the door. If there is monies in the Ryan White Fund, and last year, the federal government sent in a little over $26 million. This allows county jails to try and appropriate some of that money to pay for the necessary medication. That's what this bill does.
Thank you for your explanation, Mr. Chairman. And this is, I think, a good bill in that it is preventative in nature, because if these folks aren't treated, there's a danger of spread. Plus, obviously, they get sicker. So if the funds are available through the Ryan White Fund, and these folks, our local jails should have the opportunity to avail themselves of that. So I commend you for bringing the bill. Are there any questions? Question has been called. I don't think I saw questions. If somebody had a question, raise their hand really high. Okay, no questions. We are voting on House Bill 1484. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. 1484 moves to calendar and rules. Item number 5 on our calendar is House Bill 1254 by Chairman Kiesling. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Kiesling, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I may present from my seat here, House Bill 1254 is pretty much just a cleanup bill. Section 1 of the bill removes the directive that allows Social Security numbers to be placed in the voters' information or on the voters' information. 2, it simply makes it permissive that the voter is able to sign the printed application that's printed from the electronic poll book. And 3, the third thing is in Section 2 of the bill, it removes the requirement placed on our state primary boards to prescribe a particular color a ballot for the ballots. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll entertain any questions.
And Mr. Chairman, I believe you did have someone here who wanted.
I do if necessary. Yes.
Are there questions of the chairman? Question has been called without objection.
Wonderful.
And we thank the person who was here to testify for their patience.
Yes, thank you.
We are voting on House Bill 1254. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 1254 moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Item number 6, House Bill 753 by Chairman Littleton. Chairman Littleton, have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Chairman Littleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill authorizes a utility district to reimburse members of the Board of Commission for premiums paid, participation in individual medical insurance plans and life insurance plans, and medical insurance coverage by Medicare and Medicare supplement insurance policy.
You've heard this explanation from the sponsor. Questions? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 753. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves to calendar and rules.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our calendar, item number 7, House Bill 329 by Chairman Moody. A motion and a second. Chairman Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Lady and members. Members, this is the governor's teacher pay compensation bill. And Section 1 lays out the minimum salary increases on an annual basis to where by 2026, 2027, it'll reach $50,000.
All right, you've heard the sponsor's explanation, but there is an amendment that has been filed by Chairman Whitson, drafting code 006529. Do I have a motion on the amendment? We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and that is the correct number, 6529, and I move to adopt Amendment 2.
Chairman Whitson, could you please explain the amendment?
Yes, ma'am. I fully support the $125 million funding for our teachers. However, I feel that part of this legislation should be two separate bills.
You've heard the sponsor's explanation. Leader Lamberth, I believe you wanted to be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and with all due respect to the sponsor of the amendment, I would make a motion to lay this amendment on the table. Thank you. This is a bill that came to us from the governor's office. It does involve teacher pay raises and had a secondary part that dealt with wage withholdings and withdrawals, and would prefer that the bill remain in its original posture if at all possible.
You've heard the motion. This proper motion, properly seconded. That cuts off all debate except that of the sponsor. So Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Thank you, ma'am, Madam Chairman. Again, we do fully support our teachers. However, we feel that this singles out a separate group of state employees, and it should be addressed in a separate piece of legislation. Again, I move to adopt.
All right, we are voting on the tabling amendment. We're voting to table Amendment 6529. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Close.
The noes have it. We are now voting on Amendment 6529. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. 6529 is attached to the bill. We are now back, Chairman Moody, recognizing you on the bill as amended.
Well, I thank you, members, and I know this has been a long-awaited pay increase for our teachers, and we're looking forward to being able to get this on the floor and send it on to them.
Representative Parkinson. Question has been called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 329 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 329 moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, committee and chair lady.
Item number 8 on our calendar is House Bill 1503 by Chairman Vaughn. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
Good afternoon, Chair Lady. I would like to compliment the committee on their voices today. Y'all are a lot of volume, a lot of excitement today. Enthusiastic responses. I appreciate that.
On the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Chairman, I'm House Bill 1503 also has an amendment which is coded 6459 that we added in this finance.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The voices have gotten much weaker, Chairman. The ayes have it. The amendment 006459 is attached. We are now back on the bill as amended, and would you like to share with us what this bill does?
Absolutely. It'll build excitement, I can assure you, Madam Chairman. This amendment removes the provisions of the House Insurance Committee amendment that creates a state independent dispute resolution process and leaves in place the federal IDR system for now. Instead, it calls for a study and a report by the Department of Commerce and Insurance on ways that the state can address some of the challenges of that federal system. The amended bill will give some greater consumer protections in insurance networks to better avoid some of the massive provider group changes like we saw in Memphis earlier this year, and gives us a little bit more time to figure out if the federal IDR system can be fixed to suit our needs. And with that, I appreciate your support.
You've heard the sponsor's explanation. Leader Lamberth.
I don't know about anybody else, but I found that absolutely riveting. Thank you, Chairman. It was wonderful.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At one point, I was going to make a motion to move it to summer studies, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to support the bill. But I do have a question for you. Is there a difference between a real summer study or just a summer study? Is there a difference between the two?
Chairman Vaughn.
I believe these days, Madam Chairman, a summer study is a no with a hug.
I've heard that said. Are there any other questions for the chairman? Seeing none. We're voting on House Bill 1503. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, very weakly, but your bill moves to calendar and rules.
Thank you. Today, I will take what I can get, Madam Chairman. Thank you. And I will like it.
Item number 9, House Bill 937 by Chairman Alexander is next on our agenda. You have a motion and a second. Chairman Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, Committee. This bill is a convenience voting center bill for Washington County, Tennessee. It's traveling with a financial letter that has been submitted to you all from my county saying they've covered the cost.
Yes, it does have a funding letter. That's how it made its way to this committee.
Yes.
Are there questions for the sponsor? Question has been called. Without objection, we're voting on House Bill 937. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 937 goes much more enthusiastically, I might add, to calendar and rules.
Thank you. Thank you, Committee.
Number 10 on our calendar, House Bill 345 by Representative Sparks. Representative Sparks, you're recognized at your seat.
Yes, ma'am. House Bill 345 simply extends the renewal process from 12 months to 24 months on a license plate.
Do I have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. You've heard the sponsor's explanation. Are there questions on the sponsor? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I heard the explanation, but it was so fast, I don't know what he said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Representative Sparks.
It just simply, you could purchase your tag for 24 months instead of 12 months. Got a positive fiscal note as well. Thank you.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, this is the option that's given to the person that's making the request for the 24 or 12, or we're not mandating that it all go to 24 months.
Representative Sparks.
No, ma'am, it's consumer's choice.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor, Madam Chair.
Chairman Moon. Leader Cochran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the sponsor, how would that work? So if you get your tags for 2 years, and there may be an obvious answer to this I'm just missing, but let's say after the first year that county passes a new will tax, and so typically, right, that's when you would pay your county will tax. So what if that happens in the middle of a 2-year cycle? How does the county collect their will tax? Is that
Representative Sparks?
Representative, I've never had that question posed to me. I know the County Fish Association, Bryce Hobby and Rodney Archer are good with this.
Leader Cochran.
okay? And we might want to at least get some clarity on that for county governments because again, that could happen. You could definitely pass a new tax in the middle of a 2-year cycle.
Okay.
Any further questions? Representative Sparks, probably if we could get that information,
Yes,
be
I'll be
prepared
happy.
for that question
do
at your next stopping calendar and rules are on the floor.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we are voting on House Bill 345. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. I believe the noes have it. House Bill 345 fails. Item number 11 on our calendar is HJR 139, also by Representative Sparks. Representative Sparks, do you have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Simply what HAR
I need a
139.
motion. And second, thank you. Representative Sparks.
Yeah, it's simply asking TAS to review home affordability and the rising cost of impact fees.
You've heard the sponsor's explanation regarding a TASER review. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, we're voting on HJR 139. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. House HJR 139 moves to calendar and rules.
Thank you, members.
Item number 12 on our calendar is House Bill 947 by Chairman Boyd.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Chairman Boyd, you recognized at your seat.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and I do have an amendment traveling with the bill. That's Amendment Drafting Code 5317. And Madam Chair Lady and committee, all this bill does is it takes the Utility Management Review Board and the Water and Wastewater Financing Board, both of which oversee financial health of publicly owned water and wastewater utilities in the state of Tennessee, and they're housed in the Comptroller's office. It will merge those two boards together into a new board that will be called the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation. Madam Chair Lady, I'll take any questions.
Are there questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 947. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. House Bill 947 moves to calendar and rules. Item number 13 on our calendar by Representative Gant. I have a motion and a second. Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What this legislation does, it simply is an extension of the car rental fee used to retire the debt at the FedEx Forum in Memphis.
Heard the sponsor's explanation. I see no questions. Without objection, we're voting on House Bill 1129. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. If you'd like to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk. Item number 14, House Bill 33, also by Representative Gant.
Thank you, Madam
I need a
Chair.
motion, and we have a motion and a second. Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What this legislation does is it targets the storm victims and the recent tornadoes and homes that are affected by damaged or destroyed by disasters and emergencies, and it prorates the property tax back to January 1st of this year. So the people that are affected by these recent storms, they would be included in this legislation. But it is, Madam Chair, let me point out that this is permissive per county.
All right, and I believe what you have just described
Was the amendment.
is the amendment, which motions on the amendment 7232. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And Amendment 007232 is now on the bill, and I believe that the sponsor has
Move
described the
passage.
bill as amended. Are there any questions? Question has been called. We're voting on House Bill 33. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 33 moves to calendar and rules. Number 15 on our calendar is House Bill 612 by Chairman Hawk. We have a motion and a second.
Thank you,
Chairman
Madam.
Hawk, and I do believe we have a funding letter for this bill, so tell us what House Bill 612 will do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This affects the funding of a bill that we passed in the General Assembly of 2021. What this does is state that the Administrative Office of Courts is responsible for payment of determination of whether a defendant is intellectually disabled or not under the death penalty section of code. In a nutshell, that's what it does, Madam Chair and members.
Are there questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 612. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 612 moves to calendar and rules. Item number 16, House Bill 1426 by Chairman Hicks. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do have an amendment that makes the bill.
And that amendment drafting code I have is 004157. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Without objection, we're voting on amendment 004157. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is now amended, and Chairman Hicks, please share with us what the bill as amended does.
Thank you, Chair Lady, members. As amended, House Bill 1426 simply clarifies that sales tax are to be collected for amusement events held at Sports Authority-owned facilities, regardless of whether the operator of the amusement event is a nonprofit organization. When these facilities receive a distribution of sales tax revenue under state law. And in order to allow for impacted organizations to adjust their operations accordingly, the bill includes a grace period until January the 1st, 2027.
Heard the explanation. Questions? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill 1426 as amended. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 1426 moves to calendar and rules. Item number 17 on our calendar is by Representative Love. We have a motion and a second. House Bill 366. Representative Love, you're recognized at your seat.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. There's an amendment attached to the,
We need to attach the amendment, yes. 007082. Is that what you have?
yes, ma'am.
All right.
Members, House Bill number 366 addresses property tax freeze income limits. Currently, income limits can vary from $31,000 to $56,000 because they're based upon what the average income limit is in that county and also what the comptroller has set for the property tax relief program. This piece of legislation simply allows a municipality to be able to increase that limit to $60,000 if they choose. It is permissive, and again, allows them to increase the amount to $60,000.
And I believe Representative Love, you have described the bill as amended, but we never formally got
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
amendment attached. So we are voting on Amendment 7082. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The amendment is attached, and Leader Lambert, you are recognized.
This is a program I think we've all watched for several years, but I want to make sure what we're voting on here and what we're doing here in this amended version. So this will allow local governments to limit and restrict the number of individuals of our seniors that will be eligible for this program, correct?
Representative Love.
No, sir, it actually expands because right now the limit is based upon what the comptroller sets for the property tax relief program or the average income of the persons aged 62 to 70 in that county. And right now, the highest limit is $56,000, which I think is in Williamson County. The lowest amount is $31,000. So right now, if someone in Nashville makes $50,000 a year, they don't qualify because the income limit for Nashville is $45,000 for the property tax freeze program. So this gives the county the option to increase that amount to $60,000 and expand the number of people who will be able to participate in the program. And again, it's permissive. Counties don't have to, but they can. Again, this is not the relief program. This is the freeze program.
Leader Lambert.
Thank you. And how much does the state allocate toward this program?
The state doesn't allocate anything toward this program. This is the freeze program, not the relief program.
Leader Lambert.
And that's why I asked the question. So is this forcing communities to go this way? I'm just trying to, are you limiting or expanding the population that can utilize this program? And are we forcing something on local communities that we're not paying for?
Representative Love.
Thank you for the question. The program itself is permissive. Right now, we only have 23 counties that participate out of the 95 counties. And it allows them to still participate if they want to, and they can also terminate the program if they want to. This does nothing to change the actual makeup of the program that is operating right now. It simply allows counties, if they want to adopt an amount of $60,000 per participant if they want to.
Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And one final question here. The amendment that I was provided that was coded 7082 said it required a municipality under certain circumstances to adopt the $60,000 income limit. And I just wanted to know what circumstances were requiring that.
Are you looking in section A? Or some section, section 2, letter A?
Any section that would require them to.
Representative Love.
I'm sorry, I thought you said that you saw a section where it said that they have to.
Leader Lambert.
Yes, under it's amendment coded 7082. And is there a section that requires a municipality to adopt the property tax freeze program and use the $60,000 income limit? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
No, it's an option for them to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. Representative Love, I guess the question is I recognize why we want to raise the cap because these communities that do participate, you want more people to be able to qualify and spread the money out over that period of time. But if you don't raise the floor at the same time you raise the ceiling, you're effectively not helping more citizens. What's the determining factor in just raising the ceiling and not the floor too?
Representative Love.
Help me understand in this particular example, what would be the floor? I think you're saying that the income limit is the ceiling. What would be the floor in this example?
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chair Lady. What I'm saying is you said not all, as we know, not all communities participate in this freeze program. But it's my understanding that in their participation, not all communities have the same rate in which it's currently frozen, that this amendment would allow the upper end to be raised from 56,000 to 60. The reason for that is it gives the opportunity for local governments to be able to provide freeze services to more people. My thinking is if you brought the bottom up, then you would exhort those other ones who have these programs to spread for lack of better terms, the freeze over all those for seniors. And I just didn't know if they're linked or not linked, or is it just based upon that rate, based upon what the home values are in each of those 28 communities?
Representative Love.
Thank you, Chair Lady. So I'm going to read from the Comptroller's website in reference to property assessments and property tax freeze. As many of us know, you can have your property taxes frozen at that rate. It has always been permissive. If a county wants to participate in that program, they can. And I honestly can't tell you why some don't. I imagine that for some of them, it may be that they don't have the ability to freeze property taxes and possibly reduce their own local tax collection, but I can't speak for them. I do know that I did send this particular piece of legislation to their association of trustees and did not have any objections to the bill. They were excited about the possibility of increased amounts because this is the only way they can increase the amounts. And again, the amounts range from 31,000 to 56,000 with only 23 areas participating in it.
Okay.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, Representative. I'll just have a discussion with you offline.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Representative Love.
No, I'm sorry.
Further questions? Okay, we are voting on House Bill 366 as amended. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 366 moves to calendar and rules. The last item on our calendar, House Bill 1232 by Representative Hemmer. We have a motion and a second. Representative Hemmer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. House Bill 1232 is to allow private universities the same opportunity as public universities to create lab schools and a framework to negotiate with their local LEAs. All this bill does is authorizes the local Board of Education to contract with a private college or university that are accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission or on colleges, which would cover all the TACUA schools in Tennessee. And to maintain a lab school for grades pre-K through 12. And I do have an amendment that makes the bill, Madam Chairwoman.
I believe the amendment is traveling with it, Representative.
Okay,
so.
great. Thank you. And the amendment was done on the request of the University of Memphis with the consultation with the Department of Education to ensure the language is updated to include TISA allocations and accept grants in the same manner as other schools. Thank you.
All right, you've heard the sponsor's explanation of the bill as amended. Leader Cochran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, I don't know that I fully understand what the bill does. So I know in section A or section 1 and then subsection A, we're talking about training teachers.
Yeah.
And then later in the bill, we're authorizing those private colleges or universities to receive TISA funding that are tied to students. So like, are we sending a private college students to kind of practice with? Tell me what does this establish?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Representative. So earlier this year, you might have been or seen some other presentations. I don't know if you're in the education committee, but there are several lab schools in Tennessee. University of Memphis houses one, MTSU has one, and ETSU has one, and they've been shown to be very innovative, have some of the best school testing and outcomes in the whole state, and they provide a lot of collaboration with universities to have the students involved, have university professors involved, and it's also a good HR thing because it allows these employees of the university to have their students come to school on campus. So University of Memphis school was so successful that they actually increased their grades because they were finding people. The students were having learning loss when they went to other schools, and they're also losing employees going to other counties and other universities even after their kids were getting out of that cap of the grade school at 6. So what this has done is really unbeknownst to a lot of people, the private universities in the state, Vanderbilt, Fisk, or two here in my county, aren't allowed to do these through the code. So we're just opening up this code to allow private universities those same opportunities just to create these lab schools to have that collaboration and synergies within their counties.
Leader Cochran.
Thank you. Just one quick follow up. And so, no, I appreciate that clarification. That clears that up a lot. The public university examples that you just gave, they're eligible to receive those TISA, the TISA funding tied to each child currently. Is that right?
Correct. And so the reason why that mentions the TISA funding is University of Memphis is doing this today. Since I opened this code and this program up to others, they asked to go ahead and when the TISA language was passed last year, they didn't update this section of the code, and so they wanted to have that TISA language in there as well as the opportunities to receive grants, as they right now have an undue burden getting grants to do this program because it didn't match the other parts of the code.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Whitson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I thank you for bringing this legislation. We have a teacher shortage. We're having trouble recruiting teachers. I think this has the opportunity for universities like Belmont and Lipscomb to help solve that problem in the future. And thank you for bringing this great piece of legislation.
Leader Lambert.
Completely off topic of the bill, but is this your first bill?
This is my first time into the Finance Committee. Yes, sir.
Leader Lambert.
It's a wonderful committee. I don't know if you bragged upon the chairman or the committee enough, but I'll give you an opportunity for that in a moment. There is a chairman to my left. Have you ever had a bill in calendar and rules yet?
No,
Representative.
No, sir. No, sir, I have not had the pleasure.
Leader Lambert.
Now he's learning. So if you get there, I would recommend that you be very kind to Chairman Zachary, and maybe he would allow you to progress beyond that. But I do want to congratulate you on getting your first bill this far in the process. And I was going to pass this committee. I'm not trying to spoil the moment here. We'll see. It's still suspenseful. But you do have some really good co-sponsors on here, and that at least helps sway me a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for the sponsor or hazing? Seeing none. We're voting on House Bill 1232. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and now we can congratulate you, Representative Hemmer.
Thank you. Thank you. Need to figure out what
it
kind
does
of
move.
coffee
House Bill
Representative Zachary likes.
1232 moves to calendar and rules. We have any unfinished business? That completes our calendar. Seeing no unfinished business, we stand adjourned.